everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to part 2 of Direwolf20's mod spotlight of Just Dire Things, a mod by me. Today we're going to look at the next batch of tools and then a bunch of the blocks that are added by Just Dire Things. And again, this is not the complete mod. I want it out there for testing and playing with. There's still going to be some updates happening. There's still going to be some new items and new blocks that I have in mind. But I think there's enough content for you guys to enjoy. And also, some of these textures are not finalized. A lot of them are definitely good, right? Like the tools are awesome looking and a lot of blocks and items, but there's a few that are just temporary textures until we get them updated. So let's take a look today at the Tier 3 resources, then the Tier 4 resources, and then finally all the different blocks that are available in the mod. Let's get started. So Tier 3, Voidshimmer Goo, requires a visit to the end, and not just a visit to the end. You're probably going to have to take down the dragon and head out to some end cities to get some shulker shells and some chorus fruit. Now at this point you're probably saying to yourself, Dire, that's a lot of work to get these things, but there's some cool stuff that you get access to once you do it. You'll note that the Voidshimmer Goo here does have, a one-time crafting cost, right? Like, you only never need to make one, technically, though you could absolutely make more. And just like the previous ones, the Voidshimmer Goo is faster than their prior tier and can do all the crafts that the prior tiers could do. And just like you couldn't upgrade diamonds with your Primogel Goo, you can't upgrade diamonds with your Blaze Bloom. You need to get Voidshimmer Goo to get access to diamonds. But you'll notice the crafting of the previous tier stuff is much quicker. That said, diamonds take a little bit longer for the goo to consume and convert. So, give it a little time. But eventually, your diamonds will convert and get you access to our next tier of resource, the Celestigem, an ability, a gem that comes with several abilities, primarily focused around teleportation. Because Dire, he likes his teleporty stuff. Now there's definitely some more plans for this in the future. So there's going to be a lot more things. But there you go. Now, unlike previous, and don't forget I had hammer mode on, so it also broke my other block there. But unlike previous things that dropped resources that need to be smelted, your Celestigems do not need to be smelted. Just like diamonds, you don't need to smelt them. You get a certain amount, and let's break it without a special pick, and you'll notice that your raw Celestigem here just drops regular old Celestigems. So what can these be used for? Well, a whole bunch of stuff. First off, you get access to yet another pocket generator here that can burn a whole bunch of good stuff. You also get access to a higher tier of coal. Now, the coals we kind of talked about a little bit, but let's take a look at these. So we're going to want to go ahead and get a crafting table for the coals. So we saw last time that primal coal is made by placing a coal block next to a tier 1 Primogel. The primal coal blocks, once you craft them, can be placed next to the tier 2. And obviously they can also be placed next to the tier 3 because, as a reminder, higher tier goo can convert everything that the lower tiers can, and do so faster while we're at it. And what that's going to get us, as you could probably guess, is going to get us a handful of Blaze Ember, which we can then turn into Blaze Ember blocks. And those Blaze Ember blocks can be converted to the next tier, which will be Void Flame coal. Void Flame being the third tier of coal. So if we break this dude, you'll note that we got our Blaze Ember. And again, you get somewhere between 3 and 4. The Void Flame is pretty powerful. I mean, it's just like you would expect from before in the math I told you about last episode. So this single piece can smelt 216 items. So it's a lot more powerful than regular old coal. So I'm just going to give my my fuel canister here, and then let's take a look at the Celestial pocket generator, the tier 3 pocket generator. It's going to burn coal a lot faster. What was it, 15-ish, 16 seconds or so last time? This one's going to burn in about 7 seconds to burn a full piece of coal. So obviously, you can also throw your fuel canisters in there, and they'll, burn a bunch of power and generate a bunch. And you're going to need it. And I'm going to tell you why. Because all the Celestigem tools require power. And not only do they require power, but they actually don't store a whole lot of power, and that's kind of by design. So they don't have a huge energy buffer. Each one of these has about a 10,000 RF energy buffer. You can see they filled up very quickly, courtesy of my pocket generator. And each of these has some cool abilities attached to them, just like the previous ones. And you'll also notice that this time there is a Paxel. So for the first time there's a Paxel. Paxels are only available at tier 3 and above. The tier 4 tools also have a Paxel. So the Paxel can break stone, break anything basically that a pickaxe, a shovel, or an axe can do just as effectively. So let's take a look at each of these abilities and see how they work. So I'm going to place my pocket generator in the chest there, just so you guys can see how this is. So first things first, the Celestigem Pickaxe. Just like previous tiers, this thing has a hammer mode, but unlike previous tier, it has a larger hammer mode. So the hammer mode on this is a 5x5 and auto smelt. Okay, but you'll notice mining those 5x5, we burn through energy pretty quickly there. You do that 3 more times and you're out of power. So trust me, you're going to want to bring your pocket generator with you to keep these tools powered. Okay, so let's take a look at the set of abilities. So ore miner and ore scanner are just like before, the exact same thing. So you can right click and find all the ores in the world, and you can also vein mine ores. Auto smelter exists just like before, and hammer can now toggle between being completely disabled or you can do 3x3 mode, or you can go 5x5. Okay, now what's the last one? This little blue orb. Well, that is the Drops Teleporter, the new and special ability courtesy of the Celestigems. The Drops Teleporter allows you to bind your tools to any chests or inventory in the world. This includes applied energistics interfaces, giant storage chests, pretty much anything that's, anything you could put a hopper on and drop items into, these can be bound to. And whichever block face you click on matters. So for chests, it obviously doesn't matter, but if you had something like a furnace where you want to insert in the top, you'd want to click on the top spot. And you'll notice that when you do that, it gives you a little indication there of where the tool is bound to. You can also hold shift to see which abilities are active or inactive. Remember, I turned off my auto smelter, and where the Drops Teleporter is bound to. And now, as you can probably guess, whenever you go mining in the world, all your items disappear. Where'd they go? Straight into the chest. And these abilities can obviously be combined. So if we turn back on our auto smelter, boom, now we've smelted and teleported, and now 3 stone landed in the chest. If we got some gold ore, for example, and boom, all my ingots landed in my chest. That could go straight into an A system or kind of anywhere else that you would want to send stuff. So that is the new ability on most of the tools. As you can probably guess, the Celestigem Shovel works the same way. Hammer mode, and if you bind it to an inventory, it will automatically send those items straight to that inventory. Pretty spiffy. Obviously, your tools do not have to be bound to the same inventory, so you can put your pickaxe here, and you can put your shovel here. And then if we turned off hammer mode, those guys would all go there, and that would all go there. Cool. The Celestigem Axe, same thing, Drops Teleporter, so bind it to a chest, and then anything that you harvest with the axe would wind up inside the chest. Pretty cool. And this includes some leaves. So if you right-click a bunch of leaves, if they happen to drop anything, they just, didn't because RNG luck, but you get the idea, right? Wow, bad, really bad RNG. But you get, you see what happens, right? So that's the Celestigem Axe. Now, for the sword, same exact deal. Any mob drops from mobs that you kill will go directly into a bound chest. So for example, if you were to bind your chest here, notice that the drops went directly into the chest. Pretty spiffy. And then finally, you've got your Celestigem Hoe. Now, the Celestigem Hoe is just like the Tier 2 one, can automatically till the ground. Notice all my things are teleporting. But as usual, you can disable with a hotkey, and then all your abilities are turned off. And if you just want to disable the drops teleporter, you can do that as well. But I like the drops teleporter being on because, right? Like it's cool. Teleport your drops. There's reasons you would want that on when you go mining, but if you're working around your base, maybe you don't want that turned on, you know. So for the hoe, when you go ahead and bind it to a chest, and again, it has the drops teleporter toggle there, all you have to do is till some farmland, and you've got Voidshimmer soil. This stuff, just like the previous tier of soil, will automatically harvest drops, but because the soil is now bound to the chest, and by the way, if you want to rebind, you can just right-click the soil again. If we now set our random tick speed to 300, you'll notice that no longer do the items drop in the world at all. They automatically teleport and give you some little particle effects indicating as such, and they landed right in the chest there. You know, maybe I should use a slightly different chest. So what I'll do is bind you here, reconnect all these guys. You're going to obviously have to click on all the soil if you want to rebind them, but that's not a big deal. And now this guy's going to, you know, sit there and do its thing. Well, as it should be. Did I not bind it correctly? There we go. See? Wheat and seeds. And then finally, the Celestigem Paxel. Has all the abilities, all the previous abilities, does everything that you might expect. So if you would like to do, you know, a nice 3x3 in the world, right? And we could do some oak up here. Okay. Normally, your Paxel would only be able to mine like blocks, so or the shovel or the pickaxe, that is, and then the shovel would only be able to if it was activated with hammer mode. Could do that, but with the Paxel, hammer mode works for all the things. It also has lawnmower. It also has ore miner. It also has ore scanner. So notice that when I right-click, it did all the things, right? It both highlighted ores and did a lawnmower. You're going to have to toggle on and off whichever ones you want. Cool? Now to take a look at the final goo. You're going to need to brave the depths and possibly encounter a warden if you want to get yourself access to the Shadowpulse Goo. So all wardeny type items here, along with the previous tiers, Voidshimmer Goo will get you access to Shadowpulse Goo. Now this stuff gives you access to some really powerful tools, and as a result, their costs are not cheap. You're going to need to get yourself that, as well as an entire block of netherite. The block of netherite gets placed right next to the Shadowpulse Goo, and then it starts consuming. And just as promised, it's much faster than all your prior tier goos. So if I were to do something like that, and that, you'll notice which ones are the fastest. Yeah, Shadowpulse, way quicker to consume and transform. Pretty cool. Now, raw Eclipse alloy ore is going to be smelted in a furnace, just like you might expect. And this gives you access to, once again, some cool tools, higher tier pocket generator, and some other cool blocks. More things planned in the future for that guy. So let's take a look at just dire things. We're going to go ahead and remove you here. We're going to go ahead and delete that guy, and we're going to put this one here, and we're going to get ourselves a whole new set of tools to demonstrate their cool abilities. So first off, let's compare the pocket generators. So you'll notice here, if I were to place a piece of charcoal in there, and we might as well activate them before we put it in. Burn time is about 8 seconds. For this guy, burn time for a piece of coal is about 4 seconds. So 4 seconds to generate the 24,000. So that's about 6,000 RF per tick per second for generation. Yeah, so not too shabby, right? It'll fill up pretty quickly. Pretty sure they also have larger, maybe they don't have larger internal buffers. Yeah, no, they're all about 1 million. So, but yeah, you get the idea there. So definitely a better version of generator. Generates a lot more power, and you're going to need it because each of these guys are a little power hungry. These swords and tools all require about 500,000 RF. to fill up entirely. And the reason for that is they have some pretty cool abilities that get very expensive very quickly. Let's take a look. And as promised, there is the Paxel. So you can see they're all kind of filling up as best they can here. So I've bound my Eclipse alloy to this chest because your inventory is going to fill up pretty quickly. So as you might expect, Ore Miner still exists, as does Hammer, Drops Teleporter, Auto Smelter, all those things. But we've got a new version of Ore Scanner. It is called the X-Ray. And as you probably guessed, right-clicking will show you exactly which ores are in the area. Now, before anybody starts saying, Darwolf, that's so overpowered, keep in mind that most modded players, by the time they get to this tool, have probably already set up auto mining. So I don't want to hear overpowered. It's pretty cool. Now, it does use a healthy amount of power to do this. Not a ridiculous amount, but you'll notice it sits right around, what I make it, 5,000. So not a crazy amount of power, but still pretty good. Okay. You'll note that this thing also has a 7x7 area of effect hammer. So you can still do 3x3. You can still do 5x5. You can still do now 7x7. You can also turn off the abilities with the hotkey altogether. And it has like this really cool little animation here with like, it totally feels like Warden-y, pulsy, skulky. It's so good looking. I didn't do that art, so, you know, I'm just saying it's amazing, and I love it. And then mining. So nice 7x7 mine. Now, the other ability that these tools have is this one, Instant Break. Now, this drastically increases the cost of the tool to break ores. Let's see the difference. So if I fill this thing up with power, and then clear a nice 7x7 area, without Instant Break, you'll notice, yeah, not too bad. It used about 5,000 RF to clear all those blocks out. Not a big deal. Now, what if Instant Break is on? That's going to be a different story. Instant Break turn on, instantly breaks, used close to 20,000 forge energy to do that. Now, the energy cost scales with the hardness of the block. So, if we were to, for example, do something like this, get a bunch of obsidian, get a building gadget, and charge up my building gadget some way, shape, or form. Gonna need some power in that bad boy, please. And we did surface mode. So now we've got a 7x7 of obsidian to mine. We can absolutely insta-break that, right? Not a problem. Well, let's see. Oh, maybe that is a problem. It's going to take more than 500,000 RF to instant break all that. So let's shrink it down to a 3x3 area. Does that sound doable? Oh, hello. Yeah, that used a lot. Okay, how about 5x5? We have enough power left for that. I don't even know. It's not going to be quite that much, but yeah. So instant break, you know, you can have fun. You're going to run out of power, though. Like, I promise you're going to run out of power pretty quickly. Unless you have a couple decent-sized generators in your back pocket. Well, I guess now we might be okay. And, of course, you do get a Paxel, if you want to go that route. That guy's going to also have a decent amount of battery. And same thing as before, it has access to all the cool stuff, right? Tree Feller, Hammer, X-Ray, Instant Break, and all the other tools work about the same. Eclipse Alloy Shovel, same deal, has a 7x7 with Instant Break. The Eclipse Alloy Sword has replaced Mob Scanner with Mob X-Ray. And what it's going to do is find all mobs nearby and give them the glowing effect. So both passive and hostile mobs will be affected by this ability. Okay? And that also works, by the way, everybody can see that. The Ore X-Ray and the other two ones only you see, but it was so much easier to give mobs the glowing effect than to do this client side only that I just said, yeah, it just applies glowing to any mobs in the area. Got it? So then your Paxel here, so some pretty powerful tools, but look how fast I burned through that power. Also, I've got, well, okay, they ran out of power, so that's a bad example. But still, you get the idea. Oh, no, they didn't run out of power. They're both still charging. I'm telling you, Instant Break uses RF like nobody's business. But it's kind of cool, right? Now, the only other tool that gets a slightly new upgraded ability is the Eclipse Hoe. Honestly, nothing too crazy on this guy. He will increase the speed of your crop growth noticeably more. So maybe I didn't want to do that. That was supposed to be you. So we're going to bind you there. And then... Cool. And we'll do sugarcane. And then let's... So now, again, it's going to be a little bit hard to demonstrate while we're watching, but look at that. Those wheat seeds bumped up to 57%. So, yeah, that was pretty quick, right? So whenever a random growth tick occurs, it's going to do like 3 or 4 growths per. That sugarcane just bumped up to 26%. And just like tier 2 and 3, these will automatically harvest drops. And just like tier 3, this will automatically teleport them to a chest. So if we bump this tick speed up, you'll notice my cactus, my sugarcane, my wheat all going in there. Pretty cool. Now, in addition to all the standard stuff that we've seen so far from tools, we also have a wrench, which works like most other wrenches. It has a couple little specific use cases, but for the most part, it's meant to rotate blocks around. So I'm using the advanced smelting factory from Mechanism here to demonstrate that. And then you can shift right-click to pick it up. Again, that's a Mechanism feature, right? Shift right-click with wrenches, and you'll be good to go. Now, I want to burn out all the power that's stored in here, so about 200,000 forge energy stored in the smeltery. And the reason I'm burning through all that power is I want to demonstrate the next thing that I've added. Now, the simple fuel generator and the energy transmitters don't quite yet have the proper textures and block models and whatnot. I basically, my Rid, who's doing all my textures, hasn't... I only recently added these, so he hasn't done those yet. So I just took my item collector model and copied it and changed the colors, because that's about all that Dyer's good at doing. And I replaced the little bauble on top with Celestigem, because the energy transmitter requires Celestigems to craft. And that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's take a look at the energy transmitter and the simple fuel generator. So, the simple fuel generator just requires, you know, some Ferricore ingots, a blast furnace, that kind of stuff, just to get you up and running. This will generate power from fuel. No surprise, it can also accept from Just Dire Things the fuel canister. Now, fuel is a little bit unique, and you'll notice that there's a burn speed multiplier tooltip that shows up on anything that's burnable inside this thing, and other things that probably it shouldn't be on, so I think I just found a bug. Anyway, yeah, burn speed multiplier should only be showing up on burnable items like coal. So if we throw some coal in there, you'll notice that it'll start burning it up, and it's generating power at about 60 forge energy per tick. And just like with the pocket generator, it's going to, in total, produce about 24,000 forge energy per piece of coal. Pretty straightforward. Nothing too exciting, nothing too fancy. And that will be able to power things. Now we can also break this dude, and you'll notice that he does not stack with the other simple fuel generators in my inventory. And that's because whenever you break a block in my mod, if you've modified settings in the block, it will save those settings and place them back in the world. So now you can see all the energy, the 24,000 forge energy, went straight into the smelter. So it dumped it into the adjacent there. And we can throw another piece of charcoal in there, and it's burning, and it's filling this dude up. Easy peasy. Pretty cool. So that's the basic dude. Now, this button is in most of the machines as well, and it is your redstone control button. And you can cycle between ignored, low, high, and pulse. And for the most part, the way this works is ignored means the machine always runs, regardless of any redstone state nearby. Low means it'll run when it's not receiving a redstone signal, and it will not be allowed to run when it is. High means that it can only run while receiving a redstone signal, so the inverse of low. And pulse means it'll do one operation when it receives a redstone pulse, and then the redstone has to go away and then come back in order for it to happen again. So the same is true over here for this item collector. I kind of didn't mention this in my last spotlight, but the same thing here. So with redstone signal high, you need to attach some redstone to it if you want the machine to run. Now, I did make sure that redstone connects to all my blocks so that, you know, even if you're trying to run it along the side here, it'll make sure to always connect up. So that's always a pet peeve of mine, when you have to, like, do like a repeater to get them to connect. Like, no, this thing's supposed to receive a redstone signal, like let it connect to redstone. That's what I want. And that's a dire thing. So, for example, if this thing's in pulse mode, and I gave him a redstone pulse via a button, what's going to happen is, I'm going to go ahead and break you. One thing it won't do is when you break these, it won't store any items in them. But it will store energy and that kind of stuff. So it will store the settings like pulse, right? So if I were to go ahead and pulse this dude, now he's going to burn 1 piece of coal based on that pulse. And then it won't burn anymore when it's done. And we'll see some more examples of that in the next few machines that we take a look at. So now that it's done burning that piece of coal for 24,000 forge energy, it's going to be done. And again, config options if you want to change that. Okay, so good to note. Now, if we get rid of that charcoal, you'll note that there's other forms of coal in my mod, and I told you that they had other abilities. They include the ability to multiply the burn speed in the simple fuel generators. So my concept was, rather than giving you 4 tiers of generator to craft, you keep using the same generator and you use better and faster coal. So remember, we found out last episode that 1 piece of primal coal has the same energy as 3 pieces of regular coal, but it's going to burn twice as fast. So if we were to, for example, clear out all the energy that's in there, you'll note that 1 piece of primal coal, once we give it a little pulse here, will generate 120 forge energy per tick, and should generate a total of, what, 48,000, right? No, 48 would be 2 times, so this is 3 times. So it's 48 and 24 would be 72,000, right? Forge energy. Pretty cool. Not too shabby. So again, you have to like tier up through the coals if you want to produce more and faster power using my fuel generators. Obviously, you can generate power your own way. And another little bug there, burn time should not be 0.1 seconds, but bugs are bugs. And then you can have Blaze Ember, which has a burn speed multiplier 4. So I'm just going to set you to ignored now. That's going to generate 240 forge energy per tick. And just like you might expect from the other dudes, Void Flame Coal will be 480. And Eclipse Embers will be 960 forge energy per tick. So that's going to burn pretty quickly. Now, one thing I will note is that these guys do not conserve the fuel automatically for you, like the pocket generators do. So pocket generators are nice. They will stop burning and save their burn time and not waste fuel. That is not the case for simple generators because they're simple. They ain't going to do something like that. So you put a whole piece of Void Flame Coal in there and it's going to waste it. And that's not going to be fun. But luckily I gave you a fuel canister, which can compensate for that. So fuel canisters will balance out the total amount of fuel that's in there and give you an average of the burn speed multiplier. So that means that if I put, you know, a few pieces of charcoal in there, he's going to have a burn speed multiplier of 1. Okay. If I put, you know, a couple pieces of primal coal in there, he's going to have a burn speed multiplier of 2 because it averaged out to about 2. But if I only put 1 little piece of that Blaze Ember in there, maybe another one, you'll see we're at a burn speed multiplier of 3 now, which is like, you know, it averaged out the 2 but you put some more Blaze Ember in there, and then it'll bump it up to 4. So you can always see what your burn speed multiplier is going to be. But notice we filled up our simple fuel generator from the Eclipse Ember that we put in there, and now we've just wasted that Eclipse Ember. So my recommendation to you is use this nifty little thing that I gave you, fill it up with a whole bunch of Eclipse Ember, and then you'll get yourself a burn speed multiplier, and you won't waste the fuel. Good deal? Thought you might like that. Now, for the sake of convenience, I've also made sure that, you know, if these things all have a bunch of junk in them and you just want to reset their MBT, you can just craft them by themselves and it'll clear any MBT settings on them. That said, if you haven't made any changes and there's no energy in there, they will automatically stack with the other stack. So no need, you know, just because you place it in the world doesn't mean it won't stack. It'll only, you know, not stack if you've changed any setting. And this is true for almost all of my blocks. And if it's not true for them, it's a bug that I need to fix. So now you've managed to generate power. How do you transmit power to your machines? For that, you're going to want the energy transmitter. Now this is going to require some blaze gold ingots and a Celestigem, so you don't get access to this thing until you get access to Voidshimmer Goo. So remember, you have to go visit the end. But once you have access to Celestigems, you have a pretty handy way of transmitting power around your world. And that, bum-ba-da-dum, is an area effect generator. So first off, he only receives energy from the bottom of the block. So if I remove this button here, you'll notice that these guys are not receiving power. Womp womp, no good. I'll go ahead and give you some more fuel here. They aren't getting any energy. They only get energy from the bottom, so make sure that they're facing the correct direction. If you do want them to get energy here, you can just, stick them on the side and you'll be good to go. Okay? And speaking of bugs, for some reason these guys aren't, stacking unless I clear them. So, like I mentioned, they should stack because I didn't change any settings. Now this has a whole bunch of settings in there that we can take a look at. So let's go ahead and get ourselves an advanced smelting factory from Mechanism, and sure, why not, an advanced combining factory. That sounds like a good time. Okay, sure. What this does is an area effect charger. All you have to do is specify where in the world you want to charge items, right? So you can move your X and Y, just like we did for the item collector. So you'll note this guy has, a little bit of power. If I move this thing's Y level down, he's going to go ahead and start transmitting power to him. Hey, there he goes. Sweet, and he filled it up. Nice. Now if we want to expand the area of effect, ho-ho, he's smelting. Look at him go. Pretty good. Now, this guy can only transmit about 1,000 RF per tick, so if your machine's using more than that, this thing's needing 100-ish thousand RF a tick. Holy cow, that's a lot to fill up. But let's see how much he actually uses. Right? There we go. He's using a little over 1,000 RF a tick. So, he's actually... Yeah, we're struggling to keep up with the power demands of this thing. So there might be a tier 2 version of the energy transmitter that requires Eclipse alloy. It's something I'm toying with in my mind. But, obviously 1,000 RF per tick, which is the default transfer rate, is pretty good. So any machine that accepts power, go ahead and toss it down. So like, if I put an advanced energy cube here, boom. Now, one thing is, just for performance reasons, he only looks for machines that are new to him once every few seconds. So once you place it down, give it a few seconds for it to find it. But once it knows about a machine, it'll remember it forever, and then you're good to go. But if you break and replace it, it'll take a bit. If you don't like those particles, which, by the way, I might make a little bit better, you can turn off the Show Particles button, and he's still filling up. He's just not, the particles are off. Okay, pretty cool. So these things act as two things. One, they're a battery, right? So they store some extra energy in here. And two, you can turn them on and off, pulse, all that stuff. Same thing as before. You can turn on and off the area showing. And you can also filter what things are allowed to be powered. So for example, if I turned on this allow list, and then we removed a bunch of blocks from here and told it to smelt something new, you'll notice we're not charging that guy. If we put it back in deny list, he's allowed to run again. But if we put him on allow list, he's not going to be allowed to run and charge that thing unless we add it to the allow list. And again, once you change what it's allowed to power or not power, there's a few second delay in that. I might bring that down a little bit lower, but I'm trying to prevent this thing from having to like scan this whole area of blocks and find things to power every tick. That just for performance reasons wouldn't be great. So let's say we wanted to allow it advanced smelting factory. Advanced smelting factory, we can add it to the list here, and that should start powering it now. Cool. Look at it, powering it up. But other things, like the advanced, injecting factory, would not be allowed. Okay? And if we invert this and make it deny list, now it'll be allowed to power anything but the advanced smelting factory. Pretty cool. And the final thing to note about energy transmitters is they will do their darndest to balance each other. So let's take a look at that. Also, there's one more actual little note that I want to give you. What I'm going to do is get myself another cube, a basic one, and I'm going to set this up. So two things to note about these. Number one is there is a small amount of energy loss involved. So let's go ahead and throw a piece of charcoal into each of these fuel generators and attach energy transmitters to them. So now each energy transmitter should have about 24,000 forge energy available. The distance at which it transmits energy relates to the energy loss, and it's about 1% per block. So it's not a terribly large amount of energy loss, but there is some, and you should be aware of it. Again, this is configurable, so if you really hate that, turn it off. You know, you just go into the config options and disable it. But my opinion was, if you're getting an area effect energy charger, there should be some energy loss or some kind of cost to that, right? So I'm just gonna say you're allowed to charge that dude, and in a few seconds he should transmit, and you'll notice that he got about 23.28 thousand RF instead of the total 24,000 that it had available. And same deal here, if we move that guy over to there, he drains all out, and this wound up with 22.08. So a small little bit of energy loss. It's not drastic, but it exists. Okay. The other thing to note is if we were to place another piece of coal in here, charcoal, that's going to move and zap that all the way over to there. Let's do this with a new one, right? I'm going to throw a piece of primal coal in there. Does that sound cool? So he's going to produce a whole bunch of power and fill up this dude. These guys, if they share an area of effect, so what I'll do is I will visualize this. I'm just going to break these dudes to demonstrate it. Okay, so now he's charging anything within this area. And they're just like with the item collector, there is a limit, right? So you can't go too crazy big. So maybe you've gotten to your limit, but you want to charge other things. Okay, so this has a current total of 72,000 energy in it. If there are two connectors within the range, they will try to balance each other's power. So notice they're both at 36. So they keep each other balanced. So you can set up like a big area with which to charge. So now you can see this one filled that up and this one filled that up, and now they're all balanced at 24,000 each. Cool. And then if we were to show the area at which this could work, and just give him that dude, then we could put like an energy cube over here. So energy transmitters will balance with each other, and they will completely fill anything that's not an energy transmitter. So if I put this down, he will send power into that, and then all the others will balance each other out, and eventually they'll all hit 0 because they will have completely drained themselves, or 1 or 2 sometimes because rounding errors exist, but it is what it is. So 69,000-ish because of the energy loss. Cool? And that's how energy transmitters self-balance. So the more energy transmitters you have in a network, the more buffer you're capable of storing, right? Right now, this whole network of energy transmitters can do a total of 3 million RF stored in the buffer, which ain't too shabby. Pretty cool. All right, so that's wrapping up for part 2 of Just Dire Things. We haven't even talked about any of the machines yet, and there's a bunch of them. So how about we come back for part 3, where we talk about all the machines available in Just Dire Things. For now, Darwell20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let's come back next time to see some pretty cool machines, which I am frankly very proud of. For now, take it easy.